Top of the SportsMax Zone for this Wednesday. We start with cricket. Sunday's adjournment of the annual general meeting of Cricket West Indies and the subsequent postponement of the presidential election continues to be a hot topic around the region. Representatives from Barbados and Guyana boycotted the AGM, leaving the body short of a quorum. The AGM has since been rescheduled for the 11th of April. That's a Sunday. Now, speaking on the SportsMax Zone on Tuesday, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board and CWI Director Azim Bassarat said he is confident the AGM will proceed on the new date. Azim Bassarat, as you said, appeared live on the SportsMax Zone on Tuesday, and let's hear what he said.
I am quite sure that the election will go on the 11th. I think good sense will prevail. Barbados Cricket Association, Barbados have made tremendous contribution to the development of West Indies cricket. They have produced the 3Ws, a number of outstanding cricketers. They are still producing top-class cricketers. And I think that both Barbados Cricket Association and the Guyana Cricket Board will show up for the meeting on the 11th, and the meeting will go on.
Azim Bassarat, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board and a CWI Director. So where does this leave the administration of cricket in the region? To answer the question and more, Chief Executive Officer at CWI, Johnny Grave. Johnny, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. Johnny, you're just 4 years now in the job, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, just over 4 years. Yeah, it's 4 years back in February.
Yeah. No, well, let me throw you a lollipop, as Jeff Boycott used to call those Carl Hooper off spinners. To start off with, your previous job before coming to Cricket West Indies would have been commercial director of the Professional Cricketers Association in England, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah. How does this job compare? Tougher than you thought it would have been?
No, not really. I mean, it's an enormous challenge and a huge privilege to be Chief Executive of Cricket West Indies, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity and to lead the organisation through what is being transformational change at every level of the organisation is actually really exciting, and we've got lots to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, you said transformational change and exciting, but Sunday was seen as a dark day in West Indies cricket given the turn of events and what to many was an astonishing position taken by the Barbados and the Guyanese representatives. What can you say at this point, 2 days on, to what happened then?
Yeah, look, 4.5 years or so in the job, I thought I'd seen everything, but I was surprised certainly with the events of Sunday, and frustrated that all the work that the management team had put in preparing for such an important meeting was disrupted in that fashion. But the board of directors held a emergency board meeting directly afterwards and agreed that we would convene again in 2 weeks' time. So hopefully we will on Sunday the 11th get through the AGM and the election and move forward with as I said, the running the business, which is an enormous responsibility that we all have.
Yeah, Calvin Hope of the Barbados representative was on the SportsMax Zone on Monday before Azim Bassarat's appearance on Tuesday, and he outlined the sequence of events that led to them taking the position that they did. Is there anything in the presentation by the Guyanese and the Barbadians that you think merited in any way, shape or form the stance that the Barbadians and the Guyanese took?
No, not from my point of view. I mean, we published on Sunday the timeline of events that followed the articles of association and normal business practice when it comes to management of our AGM, and obviously every 2 years an election. So we sent out the notices within the agreed time. We'd convened a meeting of our finance and audit, risk and compliance committees back on Tuesday, the 9th of March, and presented the financial statements as presented by management and KPMG, our auditors. We then took those forward to the board meeting on March the 11th, and it was at that meeting that we'd received the communication from KPMG. Because of COVID-19, all audits at the moment are going through a second partner referral, and it was that second partner referral that had insisted on seeing consolidated audited financial statements. So we took the financial statements as drafted to the board, and the board agreed to keep the AGM as to the date of Sunday, and that we would send out the financial statements as they were, informing all the member shareholders that we would get them the consolidated accounts as soon as we could. And and those were shared with our Audit, Risk and Compliance Committee and Finance Committee on the Thursday ahead of the AGM, and all the final consolidated accounts were sent out on Friday.
Yeah, someone suggested that if the Barbados and Guyanese representatives had logged on to the Zoom meeting and made their intentions clear and then logged off, minuting their disapproval of what was happening, it would have been a more proper position to take than to just completely boycott the event. Do you agree with that?
Certainly from a personal point of view, if they told us on Saturday evening so we didn't have to all get together on Sunday at 10 o'clock and convene everyone with not just Cricket West Indies staff and other directors, but also other stakeholders that attend our AGM, as well as our auditors, KPMG, and the auditors that were overseeing the election. So, I think an advance warning would have been appropriate.
Johnny, Calvin Hope was given space on this program to present his side of things, which culminated in Barbados not turning up for the AGM on Sunday. He didn't speculate as to why Guyana didn't attend, but we suspect the motive would probably have been the same. You referred to a timeline of events which Cricket West Indies published. So I want you, for the benefit of those who haven't seen that timeline, to just answer a few related questions based on points that Calvin Hope asserted in his interview with us earlier this week. Calvin Hope was adamant that the communication about the financial statements, which he is making a big deal of and which reasonably in corporate governance is to be made a big deal of, he says that was not provided to him and the Barbados representatives until 24 hours before Sunday's meeting. Can you speak to whether or not that is indeed so?
Well, as I said, the financial statements of Cricket West Indies were presented to our finance and audit committees on Tuesday, the 9th of March, and those financial statements were presented to the board on March the 11th. And then on Saturday, March the 13th, all the draft financial statements of Cricket West Indies were sent to all the shareholder representatives, with a note explaining that the consolidated accounts would follow in due course. Those consolidated financial accounts were sent to our Audit, Risk and Compliance Committee on the Thursday ahead of the AGM, of which two of the shareholder representatives are on that committee, a member from Trinidad and Tobago, and in fact, a member from the Barbados Cricket Association. And then on late Friday morning, just before midday, all the audited financial consolidated accounts were sent to all the shareholder reps. So I don't know when Director Hope would have opened his emails and read them, but we were certainly sent them on Friday to all directors and to all shareholder representatives.
Right. All right. So, of course, you know that, and this is where you get into the details, because there's a difference between sending an email and an email being received. But based on how things have gone in your time at Cricket West Indies, if you send an email to the relevant stakeholders and you get nothing saying an email has not been received, then you interpret it as communication being had, that the transmission was in fact done, and you don't follow up to say, well, oh, we sent something to you at X time, did you receive it? You're not in the practice of doing that, are you?
No, we do actually. We followed up with every shareholder rep on Saturday morning to confirm that they'd got all the Zoom details. Obviously, conducting a virtual AGM is a bit more challenging than normal. So our business planning manager followed up with every shareholder representative to make sure that they'd received the entire AGM pack, which obviously included not just the audited consolidated financial statements, but also all the Zoom login details and the process to which the election would take place. And that was all confirmed, as I said, by our business planning manager via WhatsApp or phone calls on Saturday morning.
All right. So what you are saying then contradicts what Calvin Hope says, that he got the financials on, that it was emailed to him on the day before the AGM, which is a Saturday. No, so that's clear. So let me.
Most of the directors, so we wouldn't have followed up with our directors because they'd already received them, and they'd already received the CWI statements 2 weeks prior. So we only followed up with the shareholder representative.
In the realm of corporate governance and business of cricket at the level at which you are working, is it unusual, and would it then be insufficient reasoning for the financials to be as late as they were. In other words, the request from the auditors for better particulars, I'm calling it that, and your move to supply those better particulars, then those better particulars being infused and sent back to you, and the subsequent reasoning given by the auditors. Is this, you believe, in the realm of things, acceptable for someone to reconcile with, for them to get the financials later than they would have normally received them?
As I said before, the financial statements of Cricket West Indies were sent over 2 weeks before the AGM. It's only the consolidated financial statements that were.
Yes, but even that aspect, Johnny, I heard you clearly, but what I'm trying to say, remember now, Calvin Hope is saying that, one, they got it late and it was unacceptably late, not our argument, his. Two, that not only were they unacceptably late, the reason being given for them late was not strong enough. So I'm putting to you, whether in the realm of corporate governance, for those who have no experience at that level, you do, if it is strange and therefore unacceptable for the reasons given by the auditors and Cricket West Indies for the final documents being sent at the time they were sent. That's what I'm trying to interrogate with you.
Well, look, we've provided our board of directors with monthly management accounts every month before the 15th of the following month, every month since February. And this is for the financial year ending September the 30th, 2020. In addition to that, our finance committee and our audit risk and compliance committee agreed that it was appropriate for us to send out the draft financial statements of Cricket West Indies to shareholders 2 weeks beforehand. With the consolidated accounts that followed prior to the AGM. Our board of directors, which obviously includes Director Hope, agreed on March the 11th that we would send the consolidated financial statements ahead of the AGM, but that all shareholders would get the draft financial statements on Saturday, March the 13th. So it was committee approved by two of our committees. It was board approved that the AGM would take place last Sunday and that the financial statements would be sent out in draft form with the consolidated accounts to follow. And just to re-emphasise, these consolidated accounts are for Coolidge Cricket Ground, where 90% of the costs of Coolidge Cricket Ground are already within the Cricket West Indies accounts.
Yes.
The income of Coolidge Cricket Ground at the moment, because we haven't really started the redevelopment plan for Coolidge Cricket Ground yet, is some rental income from the Antigua Athletics Club and some car park rental because of its proximity to the VC Bird International Airport here. So we're not talking about a significant change. I think the difference between our CWI accounts and our consolidated accounts is less than $200,000 in terms of profit and loss. So we're not talking about substantial changes here.
Yes.
So I think more is being made of this than I believe is good corporate governance. I certainly don't think it's good corporate governance not to attend an AGM with no prior notice. So I will defend the reputation of the organisation and of management because I think we did everything that was appropriate and it was signed off by two of our committees and our board of directors.
There you go. So here's the thing, Johnny. It may be difficult for you in your position as Chief Executive Officer, which is not a political position. You are an employee of Cricket West Indies. For us, we have to present both sides of the argument for the benefit of the viewer to form their own opinions. Calvin Hope was here, asserted certain things. We have to get from you the information that will allow the viewer to reconcile the body of information they have to make a decision on where they believe truth is being told. That is why it was important to clarify the issue of the transmission of the financial statements and the amount of notice given for those statements to be digested by the person receiving them in preparation for the meeting. What you've said to us stands, just articulating it, what you've said to us stands as a rebuttal to what Hope has said about the time in which he got the documents and, of course, the reason for the delay, and we appreciate that.
And I think in addition to that, it must be said that 5 of the shareholder representatives, well, 10 obviously in terms of total number, waived notice of that. So they, we followed the due process, and I can't speak to when Director Hope opened his emails and read the financial statements, but I can tell you, as a matter of fact, the timelines of when we presented information and the process we followed, which was, as I said, approved at every stage by standing committees and the board of directors, and follows very closely and clearly our articles of association.
More on the articles of association with you, Johnny, after this break. Stay where you are, don't go anywhere. This is the SportsMax Zone. Much more on the other side. Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. We continue our conversation with Chief Executive Officer of Cricket West Indies, Johnny Grave, discussing matters germane to Sunday's adjournment of the annual general meeting of Cricket West Indies and the subsequent postponement of the presidential election. Good to have the CEO here to fill in a lot of the gaps that exist based on the information available to viewers who were perturbed by what Calvin Hope said about the elections and the reason for him not being a part of the AGM on Sunday. There are gaps there, and we're trying to fill those gaps as we go along. Welcome back, Johnny. So the issue of voting, was there any objection raised? Well, not even objection. Was there any query made or raised by the Sanasi Hope ticket drawing close to Sunday's AGM about the voting process that would be used for the election on Sunday?
We've received communication from the Barbados Cricket Association asking for clarity over the sort of how the virtual meeting would facilitate the process of election. And we responded with exactly how that would be carried out to them in advance of the AGM. And we also included it in the AGM pack that was sent to all the shareholders in advance of the AGM. So they had not just the sort of the log-on details and the consolidated audited financials, but also a detailed process of how the election would work virtually.
And how many days prior to Sunday's election did you get that piece of communication from Barbados and respond?
I think it was certainly in the week leading up to, and we responded, I think, within 24 or 48 hours of that. And then obviously, again, provided that information to all the shareholder representatives ahead of the AGM.
Right, because I read from what I understand to be part of the pack, let me call it the information pack for the AGM pack for Sunday. And when I went through the rules attendant to voting, Mr. Hope said he was surprised, saying that what I read differed from what he understood the procedure to be. When I mentioned the same information I had, Azim Bazarat said, well, yes, that's the information he had. So I say this to say, Calvin Hope was effectively saying that the information he has on voting is different from what I had and what another director had. Can you say how he would come about a different set of instructions about the voting on Sunday?
No, I can't. We only had one process. It was sent by our corporate secretary to all the shareholder representatives, and that part of the AGM is going to be overseen by some external auditors, Grant Thornton, and again, that's been run through our external councils in the BVI where we're registered as well. So no, I mean, there is only one set of rules that we were adopting, and I think it was a 3-stage process to how the election would work. Did
you say you provided clarification to the Barbados interests about the voting procedure? You provided that before Sunday's AGM. Was there any follow-up from them to say, okay, what you've outlined is problematic in particular areas? Did you get any such communication from them?
No, but I think generally speaking, having seen some of the media reports, it's around the nature of a secret ballot. I mean, the articles are very clear that there is an opportunity, if it's not through the first phase, which is a show of hands, if one of the shareholder representatives calls for a ballot, there would be a ballot. It doesn't say secret ballot, and we would facilitate the ballot that would be administered on Zoom, and we'd send very detailed instructions to all the shareholder representatives of how that worked. And as I said, we followed up with them all on Saturday to make sure that they received the information, and certainly were there to answer any questions or queries should they have had any.
So in the totality of what you've said, in what you've said to Lance and in what you've said to me over the past few minutes, would you be willing to say, Johnny Grave, that the reasons for not attending upon Sunday's AGM are flimsy at best and should not have been used by the parties?
I don't think I'll say that. I'll say that they were appropriate to 4 of our territorial boards shareholder reps. I think they followed usual practice and certainly the process that was presented to our board of directors and agreed. And I didn't see any reason why, and was surprised that we didn't get full attendance at the AGM and a quorum for the AGM to continue as we'd all prepared, tirelessly for. So, as I said from the outset, it's surprising, frustrating, disappointing, but we go again on the 11th, and we hope that everyone will turn up and that the election will go without any further dramas.
The good thing is that the issues cited for missing Sunday's AGM, the lateness of transmission of the financials and the voting procedure and all that, there is no until April 11 for people to digest that and to reconcile with rules that they don't agree with. Do you anticipate anything else cropping up in the environment that will frustrate the process as scheduled on April 11?
Well, I certainly hope not. I mean, our articles are very clear that the shareholder representatives are representing their territorial boards. They're representing our shareholders, and they carry those votes to the AGM. So I would hope that the process is very clear. I would hope that everyone follows the rules, and if people need further clarity or have any questions, that they reach out to us well in advance of that AGM. As you say, they've had those rules since Friday ahead of the originally scheduled date of the AGM, and they've got time to read them, digest them, and ask any questions that they would have.
Excellent. Johnny Grave, thank you for your time this afternoon. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Good. So that's Johnny Grave, the Cricket West Indies CEO. Lance, as a rider to this issue, there is another matter that demands attention from us, and it concerns how the practice of journalism, especially quality journalism like we do here and you've done for 3 decades or more, and I've been doing for a decade and a half, how that interfaces with self-interests. Now, I'm going to set it up and, of course, invite your contribution. So I put it like that because in a contest, in an election, where say you have at least 2 parties, you have incumbent and you have challenger. Incumbent seeking re-election, of course, wants to secure themselves in the position. It's about incumbent self-interest. Challenger is seeking after challenger self-interest, and there's a natural yin and yang between challenger and incumbent. It's part of life. Where journalism comes into play, and quality journalism, is this. You have to avoid the pitfall of siding with any party, even if as an individual there may be one of the candidates that you prefer that has to take a backseat to what is fair, and you try to be as objective as possible. A wise journalist once told me that there's no such thing as objectivity, but we still strive for it. So I say that to say, you have to allow the issues to ventilate. So if the challenger agrees to an interview, comes and makes certain assertions, lays down a basis for their challenge, and raises issues about how the incumbent is going about their business, we have a responsibility to give that challenger space and to also interrogate the issues that they will raise. We are not here to pronounce upon the accuracy of the truthfulness, not accuracy, the truthfulness of what the challenger is saying, or to tell the challenger that they should not be making those assertions. Likewise, Lance, when the incumbent comes, we also have to give the incumbent space to lay out their grounds for re-election, to speak about their successes, to talk about why it is that they should be given a new term in office. And again, we have to interrogate certain points and allow the truth to stand as it is, and allow the informed viewer to make their minds up. But here's where the problem comes now, Lance. It's when sometimes the incumbent believes you're giving the challenger too much space to speak. why are you allowing the challenger to say this and that? No, it's not us allowing the challenger to say this or that. It's allowing the challenger to make the case. So the same way that you are allowed to speak about things from your self-interest, from your perspective, is the same way the challenger is given that same courtesy, because at the end of the day, Lance Whitaker nor George Davis will pronounce on who should win or who shouldn't. It's the viewer who will determine where truth lies. And in our practice of this, Lance, we find ourselves in trouble, and sometimes we're not the favorite cup of tea of certain persons in certain contests.
Yeah, and as you say that, George, a press release coming from Guyana today with the attorneys representing Anand Senassi questioning some procedural matters regarding the Guyana Cricket Board elections on Sunday. And I say that to say that this is a press release that has come to us, and we are now presenting it that Senassi, as we had suggested on Monday's show, may not be taking the Guyana Cricket Board elections sweep by the new executive lying down. No, that is a new story, and I've just given you the latest update on it. Though there are some people in Cricket West Indies now who, from my experience, appear as if they'll probably get upset now that we have said that. Which, you know, to be honest, George, I'm not too sure where that is coming from, because we are trying to present a balanced picture of the entire story here. And there is some evidence in recent months where Cricket West Indies President Ricky Skerritt and a lot of his supporters get very, very upset about stories that are presented that are not favorable to the current administration. I remember listening to the Best and the Mason and Guest show back in January, where Ricky Skerritt was appearing on the show, and Dr. Andrew Ford, one of the presenters on Mason and Guest, asked Ricky Skerritt a few questions, and Ricky got flustered.
Took umbrage.
Yeah, he was ruffled. He suggested that Dr. Ford was being political, and he was just asking questions as a journalist. And I feel that is a little tiresome for us as journalists, and annoying, I would say. And when I listen to Senassi and Hope speak, I get the impression that that is part of their problem, that whenever issues come up and they have something to say that is not favorable to the current administration, they are ridiculed and sidelined and dismissed as, you know, troublemakers. And certainly as the media, we don't want to get into that. I can say, to be quite fair and to look at the thing in a very objective way, to the average cricket fan in the region, most people would feel that the Ricky Skerritt shallow administration has stabilized West Indies cricket in many ways. And because Guyana and Barbados are on record as supporting the Cameron ticket 2 years ago, a lot of people are very weary of the Hope and Senassi ticket. And you know, that is their prerogative. You know, they feel as if a Hope and Senassi combination, who had been in Cameron's corner 2 years ago, won't spell good for West Indies cricket, because to many people in the Caribbean, the Cameron days are behind us and we don't want to see that anymore. And the Cricket West Indies has, in many ways, reuniting elite players in the system and so on, has been favorable. So I think Skerritt and Shallow, in the present context, appear, from the outside looking in, to be on solid ground. And I'm just not too sure why they get so upset when, you know, other views are being presented, and opposition or challenges to their current position are being highlighted.
And as we close, I just like to say, having the experience of doing programs, radio programs, where you're talking about you're interviewing people in the heat of an election campaign between two tribal rivals, you have to develop the skill of taking the opinion out of your interrogation of points made by your guests. So in your interviews, you leave the opinion journalism out of that, because you're seeking after fact. When it is the space comes for your opinion, you present that. What we've done here on the SportsMax Zone, where this race is concerned, is to leave our opinions out of it, except for just now when Lance told you, based on the groundswell of support for Skerritt Shallow around the region. He's just giving a little piece of the opinion, which I agree with. But in the interviews that we've done with Skerritt, with Senassi, with Hope, we've kept the opinion out of it and try to go after the truth for the benefit of the viewer, for them to understand. That's why we do it. So we don't see any merit in persons taking umbrage at what we do, saying that we shouldn't entertain views from their rivals. It's just not cricket. Break time. Back with more.